Unafraid Show, college football apostles, and we got a lot to talk about today. And there's so much going on outside of the field. Everything from Kalen DeBoer's shirt is being criticized, and that's the way it goes when you Alabama's quarterback. Well, their head coach and you take an L. There is Connor Stallions was on the Bussin with the Boys podcast, and he is out here spilling the beans. And I need Connor Stallions on the Unafraid Show. We will be hitting this man up. The NCAA has now changed the rules again. So if you were tired of all the changes in college football, be ready to be tired again, because the national letter of intent up out of there. We ain't having no more of it. And of course, we got to make our picks, talk about games this week, and a whole bunch more. And you guys make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend about the Unafraid Show and College Football Apostles. You can listen to it on iTunes, on Spotify, wherever you want to listen to it. Just make sure that you are listening to it. And most importantly, share with a friend. So, but we will start today with the NCAA and some of the new moves that they made, Ralph. And one of them is they have now shortened the transfer portal window in the winter from 45 days to 30 days. And there was talk about eliminating the spring window, but the winter window is smaller. Is this good or bad?
It's probably bad for the late window, right? One of the most annoying things for, I think, both you and me is people calling players quitters when what choice do they have if they're going into bowl season, which is almost always outside of the educational semester. So we're talking about them being students first. It's almost always outside the educational semester. And if they're looking for a new place to go, or if their coach leaves, or if their assistant's on the fence, or there's been some transition, then you got to get jump into the portal. Almost all the animosity always goes to the players. And so, I'm sure at the end of the day, the players are going to get the short end of the stick on this. But at the same time, with modern college football, what else are you supposed to do? Like, limiting it to actual windows for people to get in and out is probably best case scenario right now.
Well, my only thing is, all right, I believe that you're right about a lot of that, but I don't understand how this benefits the players at all. That now I do understand where the system is like, we need some rules in place. We got to find a way to put something in place. But how does that help? Because coaches, they move all year round. Coaches are going to get fired starting in the next couple of weeks, and then you're going to have them move around. Look at what happened last year with Nick Saban retiring so late. So he retires, and then you have Kalen DeBoer move, and then that set off if you read the articles, like another 100 and plus moves around the world of college football, because head coaches got taken to be linebackers coaches and DB coaches and coordinators, and then you had to find new head coaches for them, new wide receiver coaches, new tight end coaches to replace those guys at other schools. So it set off a chain reaction of events, and putting the kids in such a small window doesn't make any sense to me. Now, the one thing that people don't always factor into transfers is the academic calendar, because at some point in time you can't get into college at that point in time, particularly if you're on the quarter system like you might have at Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and various other schools, which is they're going to start the week after, sometime after, immediately the first Monday after, what do you call it, after New Year's. That's when they're going to start, basically. And after they get 2 weeks into a 10-week quarter, it's too late to get kids into classes. And classes are full. So now you're messing with the graduation rates and kids graduating. So in a thing that's in a system that's supposed to be academics and student first, ain't nothing about this student first. Nothing about it at all. And maybe there has to be some guardrails and some protections for players. Now, granted, there is some in terms of that if your coach leaves, then you can hop in the portal. But that doesn't help your academic life. So this is still a system, even with these new rules, which is still imperfect at best. But another rule that came out that's coincides with this is the elimination of the national letter of intent. This one I think is going to have more catastrophic effects than anything else that has been put in place outside of the transfer portal all by itself. I mean, this is the only one because now kids, instead of in December signing a national letter of intent and being locked into a school, and the school being locked in with them, now they'll sign financial agreements. And from what I've read about it, Ralph, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is that this appears to be non-binding agreements, which means that the schools can then on the back end, if they do a late flip of a 5-star kid or something else, and now they're over the scholarship limit, they can say, "Hey, yo, Johnny 3-star, I know you were supposed to be coming here, but yeah, sorry, not sorry." And they're not going
I
to care how the PR is on it.
I always thought that the financial aid agreements were the only thing that benefited the athlete because it
Yeah.
binds the school to the athlete, but not necessarily the athlete to
Okay.
the school. Um, but I'm not sure on how it's going to work in the future, and I don't think they are either. I don't think the NCAA has an answer. They're not a forward thinking organization. They're almost primarily a reactive organization. And so I don't really see the need for a letter of intent. Um, I talked to Rich Rodriguez at a Pac 12 Media Day. I think it was the 100th anniversary of the Pac 12. He spent the whole time making fun of the fact that the Pac 12 was celebrating itself. And he had a scrum with reporters outside after his session. And he got real deep in the weeds on the whole letter of intent thing. And the thing that he said he's never understood is if you offer a kid, because so many offers are lip service, they're fake, they're PR, they're marketing for the school or for the kid or their favors. And we can get more into that anytime you want to. But for right now, just sticking on the topic, he said if a school's going to offer a kid, that kid should be able to commit right then and there.
Yep.
And if the coach changes, position coach, head coach, something like that, fine. But if you give the kid the ability to commit on the spot, that's going to limit the amount of offers that you put out there. And it's also going to limit the
Mm.
amount of tampering that goes on once a kid decides to commit. The solution to this seems to have always been let a letter of intent come whenever somebody wants to sign it. Whenever.
Oh,
And to
that if you want to sign it in June, so be it. Or if you want to sign it in August or September or December, so be it.
yeah, if you
That
start if your junior year of high school is over and you want to sign with somebody, why not?
I'm actually not mad at that because that actually goes to colleges and closing deals, right? That and but the only problem is that if it's non-binding for the player, then if you're a school now, right? Because there's two parts of this. And we have been very proactive about protecting the athletes and everything else. But if you're a school and you think your recruiting class looks one way, but there's nothing binding the kid to your school after they sign a financial agreement, I think that can create a whole nother can of worms. And this is not to protect the schools because the schools don't need protecting, but just the reality of it is that he who has the gold makes the rules, and the gold makers they are not going to want this thing to be one-sided. They already have a ridiculous one-sided relationship with the coaches as it comes to their contracts. and the buyouts and everything else, they're definitely not going to want the players in that sort of position where they can hold a school hostage, where they're like, "Yo, I signed, but I got offered a better deal, and I'm thinking about taking it." Bro, you signed your financial agreement. You agreed to come here already. Yeah, but I'm gonna head on over to Miami instead. I want some of that LifeLock money.
It's never been about school. It's never been about school. Earlier this week, there was an athlete, Arizona State, was thinking about quitting school, um, decided to go to leave the team, went into the transfer portal. His name's Tristan Monday. Okay,
Yeah, it's like the
and
third one that we've already had this year already, which is highly surprising.
yeah, and it'll keep happening, right? Because people want to preserve their red shirts, and in this case, I think he was thinking about not playing football anymore altogether. But you want to keep your options open, right? So the right thing to do would be to enter the transfer portal. And if you don't play anymore, you don't play anymore. But if you get an opportunity that's too good to pass up, and you take the time to get your studies right or whatever, cool. But my point is this: it's never been about the student athlete. It's never been, because if it
Yeah.
was, then there would be a mandate that a certain amount of your scholarships actually go to people who can further the university academically. That it would look a lot more like the way the Ivy Leagues have to recruit. And you've been through this.
Yep.
You've had your kid recruited by Ivy League schools who technically can't offer these athletic scholarships, though they will find money. But at the same time, it's also about furthering the reputation of that institution. Therefore, they are always on the lookout for student athletes who are going to first and foremost do that, right? So it's not like the NCAA has said, Alabama, you need to use 10 of your 25 scholarships every single year on people who have a 4.0 and a robust community service experience. It's never
You
been
know
that
they
way.
ain't gonna do that. They like, yo, this dude has a lot of community service experience. It is on Friday nights. He brings the community together for excitement and a joyous occasion every time that they watch him play football. That's
No,
the
these
only
schools,
community service
yeah,
that they worried about in recruiting.
exactly. And these schools want to win, and it is what it is. I'm not trying to pitch some civilization that's different than the one that we live in. The truth of the matter is these schools want to win, and the second biggest lie in college football recruiting, second biggest lie now, is well, let's get into number one real quick. If you're good enough, they'll find you.
Yeah,
That,
lies.
that that's definitely a lie. The second one is commit to the coach, not or commit to the school, not the coach. Right? This idea, this overarching idea that people commit to an institution and not the people the institution is paying a lot more than they pay their most tenured faculty to be assistant coaches on the football team.
Ralph, I've
Like,
talked to multiple kids, and we put out a video about this, about why the kids actually hop in the transfer portal to begin with. The overwhelming majority of them are pushed in the portal by their coaches.
yes.
It's that's the number one reason players hop in the transfer portal, because when new coaches come in, especially, they're like, yep, I don't want that guy. Think about what happened at Arizona State with their quarterback Levitt right now. Wait, yeah, Levitt. And Jaden Rashada was there, Trenton Bourget was there, and then they had who else was there? Emory Jones? No, who was it?
Emory Jones is the year before. They had Jeff Sims come in
Okay,
after everything.
yeah. So you have those kids in the building, but specifically Rashada and Trenton Bourget. You get a new offensive coordinator to come in, Marcus Arroyo, and when we had a chance to interview him, one of the things that he said was, we got a chance to, where there's not a lot of evaluation on these guys. We haven't had a chance to see them, all this stuff. And there was plenty of evaluation because there was plenty of other coaches that were there already on those two players. But but the whole point is that he wanted his guy in. That's what it boiled down to, in Sam Levitt, and that's who's starting right now. And it just so happens that Arizona State is winning. And coaches want their own guys in there. Regardless of whether the people that were there or not are good, there's an automatic assumption, like Deion Sanders when he went to Colorado, he was like, "Yo, this team was 1-11 last year. All the players they must suck." So, so, and even if they don't, maybe they're not our culture guys or whatever. And then there were some kids who stayed that tried to fight it out. Some of them made it, some of them didn't. But there's an automatic bias against them, regardless of whether you really want there to be or not. So it doesn't have to be malice on the coaching point. Like that's inherent. Like if you buy a house, Ralph, if you go buy a new house when you moved out there to Charlotte, you bought a house from somebody who had was previously living there. How much of the furniture did you keep that they left?
It all went to the dump, or I put some of their cabinets in my backyard and I used them as planters. But we got rid of
Exactly.
all of them.
Exactly. So exactly. So the stuff you did keep is out in the yard for your planters, for the stuff you grow for your garden. So you
Yes.
kept a little bit of it, but it wasn't getting used the same way that they were using it.
No. No.
Exactly. That's the same way with coaches.
Yeah, and so we lie to these kids and we say, "Hey, you need to pick a school because it's 40 years, not four, or whatever." While the school then turns around and pays a wide receivers coach $780,000 a year. Come on, for their ability to recruit. Of course, you're committing to the coaches. So the idea that the kids and the coaches didn't have to follow the same rules for such a long time is completely absurd. And like it, we just need to be honest with ourselves at this point. Like Dairy Queen has a salad menu. Do you know this?
No,
Dairy Queen. You can go to Dairy Queen and you could get a salad. How many people do you think go to Dairy Queen to get the salad?
not very many.
I'm sure it gets purchased. It's on the menu for a reason. And I think of that. I think of Dairy Queen having a salad menu every single time because I was a recruiting reporter. I'm around recruiting reporters. You hear them call and you be like, hey, what about University of Memphis did you really love? Was it our business program? And then you got like a 17 you got a 17-year-old kid like, the business
Dude,
program
there's
is
like
like
1 in 100 kids that matters to that much that they choose a university or not. It ain't that many.
everybody's got a business program. They're there to play football. Like, who's the Ohio State quarterback that said, "I didn't come here
Cardell
to play school"?
Jones. I'm not here to
He
play
he
school.
he told the truth. Most of these kids are not there to play school. I heard Jay Cutler tell a recruiting story recently
And he
where
was at Vanderbilt, right? Yeah.
he didn't know anything about Nashville. He didn't know where Vanderbilt was. They were accidentally recruiting him as a tight end. They didn't know who he was either. But then they offered him, and his dad was like, "Yeah, you have to accept that." The end. There was no other discussion. It wasn't like, oh, I got to visit first, or like, oh, they're such an academically strenuous institution. For some kids, that is absolutely how this works. But those are kids with a lot of options. And then
Yep.
they have to go into pro con lists. But now that money is factored in, some of those options are going to get less and less because it's really going to come down to the fact that everyone out here has a business school, even though a lot of these guys are just rec studies majors. Like everybody's got the same accredited degree programs. Who is going to make sure that you're able to take care of yourself and your bills and learn financial responsibility and build your brand? If you're I'm talking about the highest of high level players, money's going to be much more of a factor than anything an institution has to offer, which is what it has been for coaches forever.
Yep.
It is very few and far between that a coach is looking around and saying, man, I wanna be somewhere. Even Lincoln Riley, when you're like, well, the difference between LA and Norman is pretty stark, right? USC gave him the most money.
That by far. And speaking of the most money though, so the Big Ten and the SEC, they make the most money in terms of the conferences. And now for a second time, their commissioners put Petitti and Greg Sankey are meeting. Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey are meeting up to discuss college football. And they're not including the ACC, they're not including the Big 12. So they are letting everybody know that we are the big dogs. We will make the decisions and then y'all will follow suit. and they have been approached by many different um, groups. Like there's a group of ex-Disney employees that are pitching a super conference. There's another by homeboy that owns the Cleveland Browns, the Tennessee guy. What's his name?
Yeah, we talked about Jimmy Haslam last
Yeah.
week and him
So
bribing us.
exactly. So he is trying to start a super league too. So they met, and one of the comments that came out of the SEC Big Ten meeting was, "We have not seen a pitch that we can't do ourselves already." That led me to go back down the same path that we have been on this entire time, Ralph, which is the Big Ten and the SEC have zero super conference intentions because they have the power right now. And they don't care if Vanderbilt never has a chance to win a national championship. They don't care if Rutgers can never be fully competitive like Oregon and Ohio State and Penn State. They don't care. And in fact, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, they don't give a damn about anybody else. Neither does Alabama, Georgia, and anybody else in the SEC that's at the top of the SEC. As long as they get to stay at the top, that is all that matters. And we've talked about it that the actual system that would work best is collectively bargaining their media rights because they would get more money. But the problem is that that would create more parity. When you create salary caps and rules and all of that stuff, it creates more parity like the NFL model. And that will be better for college football because you would have more teams that could win on a week in and week out basis, which creates a better product, which is why the NFL product does the numbers that it does comparatively to college football. However, though, it is a major issue when you have the biggest power brokers with the SEC and the Big Ten who are not doing what's best for college football, and they're doing what's best for their own conference, which I understand because that's what their commissioners are tasked to do. And if you end up with a super conference, if Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti is not the commissioner, where do they go, Ralph? So this is self-preservation as much as it is conference preservation, because if somebody else gets to be the college football commissioner, you ain't the commissioner no more. That means the $1 million salaries are gone, the private jets are gone, all the perks and all the power are gone. So no, they are not going to sign up for that. They're going to
Right.
have to be forced.
This is about the preservation of power, and a lot has gone into, and I don't mean to be like a super cynic on this, but a lot has gone into getting the SEC and the Big Ten to where they're at right now. More specifically, the SEC, because Greg Sankey has been in the driver's seat for a lot of this. Greg Sankey does not care about the health of college football on the whole.
No.
He cares about the SEC and by extension himself. You've already explained this, right? This meeting that they had, and Nicole Auerbach was there, and she was tweeting out some of the quotes from it, and one of which was that nobody has brought them anything as far as a super league that they can't do themselves. And that was actually Tony Petitti that said it. I've yet to see a single thing in any plan that contains things we couldn't do ourselves with our colleagues, right? These meetings, they're meant to kind of be a flex on everybody else, like an acknowledgement that, like, hey, we're here, we're in charge, this is us saluting us, and they're doing it right in the middle of the season. But it also is meaningless. In March 2022, the ACC, Big Ten, and Pac 12 all got together to form an alliance.
To
How did that?
form an alliance. That's hilarious. Do you realize how stupid that looks now?
Yes, it was dumb. They got made fun of at the time, but amazingly, it looks even worse further down the road. And I think you bring up a really important point because uh, every administrator can be replaced. Everything can be pared down, can be scaled down. In fact, isn't that how venture capitalism uh, essentially works like venture capital comes into a profitable situation, and they say like, how can we streamline and pare this down into pure profit, right?
Yep.
Pure profit would look a lot like scaling most of college football down and back. I have yet to have one person explain to me how it is possible that athletic departments were able to run on pre 21st century budgets,
Mm.
because they did. When you
Yep.
played college football, were the Bills getting paid?
Hell yeah.
Okay, so now they have 50x the money that they had then, and they come to us crying poor. No, you have the ability to run a scaled back version of all of this. And what a college football commissioner probably means is a lot of this stuff gets scaled back
Yep.
to what is
And we talked
absolutely
about that.
necessary.
And we talked about that with that private equity money. You do not want private equity money in college football. It will change everything and not for the better. All
Would
right,
you agree,
next thing.
George, that the one way to get Greg Sankey out of any position of power is for somebody to come in? The biggest threat to these administrators right now is unionization of the
Yes.
players.
Yep. Yep.
That's the biggest threat to like
That's
your
the biggest threat
your
to them, biggest threat to Amazon, biggest threat to a bunch of companies, buddy.
your
Biggest
wife's
threat.
third G wagon. Like, I don't know Greg Sankey's relationship status, but like, if whoever he's dating likes her lifestyle, then you got better hope these kids don't unionize.
Yep. Yeah, that's what keeps them up at night. You know what's keeping Alabama fans up at night? Kalen DeBoer's uniform. They hate it. They're like, oh, look at him out there with his fucking t-shirt. He's out there looking sloppy and disheveled, and how dare he? You know what, Ralph? They didn't give a damn about that t-shirt when they was playing against Georgia. When they beat Georgia, they didn't give a damn about that t-shirt. But the fact that they've given up 67 points and like 3 billion yards in the last 6 quarters, now all of a sudden it's the little things that are mattering again now, Ralph. Little things. And I listened to Paul Feinbaum on Monday because I knew it was going to be gold. I listened to him a little bit yesterday, and Alabama fans, they are mad about two things. They are mad about his outfit. Well, sorry, three things. They're mad about his outfit, but that's third on the list. And then the second thing on the list is the the Malachi Moore situation, where they said he absolutely must punish this kid. They're like, you can't kick the damn ball, slam the quarterback's head in the ground, and throw your mouthpiece, refuse to come out the game. And I talked to a bunch of former players about this and a current coach in the SEC. I was like, what would you do if your wide receiver refused to come out of the game? So yes, it's a wide receiver coach. He was like, number one, my kid coming out the game, first and foremost. But the second thing is our head coach would have called timeout if need be, or taken a penalty, walked out on the field and told the kid, either you come off this field right now or you will never step back on it. So you can stay out here if you want to. If you stay out here, you will never put this uniform back on again. And honestly, I'm not a rule by an iron fist, but this is a symptom that something is going on at Alabama, because yes, he did the apology tour, but the issue is that Kalen DeBoer and their defensive coordinator got up there and just, listen, Malachi's had our back since we got here. He's a model citizen. He's a captain. Nobody cares more than him. None of that matters, Ralph. He screwed up. He screwed up. And we're not asking, nobody's asking, well, not reasonable people aren't asking him to get kicked off the team. But to keep your team together, you have to have some sort of display of a little bit of power, bro. Because what they did is unacceptable. It is it, and I'm not sure how it's going to play in that locker room. But if that locker room does not feel that it was handled adequately, somebody else will act out, and then Kalen DeBoer will have to deal with it the same way. Or if he comes down with an iron fist, then everybody can be like, "Oh, why you ain't do Malachi like that?"
Yeah, I mean, do you remember Makai Brown?
That name sounds very familiar.
He played for Alabama. He got taken out because he lost his mind during the national championship back in 2018 after the 2017 season. And the next year he was not at Alabama. He says he wasn't kicked off the team, but that, I mean, so I don't know. I sometimes I look at it, I see people saying like, what would Saban have done? And I want to answer like, leave. He left. He saw this coming. The type of kids they're coaching have changed. The level of accountability has changed.
Well,
Coaches
I don't think
complain
that
about,
that would have happened with Nick Saban either. They wouldn't have tried him like that.
yeah, maybe not, but it's not like this is the first issue Alabama's ever had on the
Correct.
sideline. It's a very
Correct.
passionate sideline.
Yeah.
So, maybe they know him really, really well, and it just comes down to the fact that like they were getting embarrassed and he reacted the way that he reacted. Time will tell, right?
Yes.
Who he is as a person. You shouldn't it shouldn't all be earned in one instance. For people who were watching that game, especially people who tuned into the end of that game to see if Vanderbilt was going to pull it off, this is the only impression of him they'll ever have.
Yep.
But at the same time, like coaches complain about a million different things, but I do believe that they're right about this. The type of kid out there in the world is a little bit different. Now,
Yes.
kids haven't changed, and Kenny Dillingham said this, the kids haven't changed, the adults have. And I believe that. I believe what kids have been allowed to do is what
Mm-hmm.
contributed to them changing
Correct.
the standards, the level of adversity, the ease of movement to get away from things that are really really hard, like the fact that you do have to be very intentional with a kid that you're raising in today's day and age. And this, George, you got to wake your kid up in the morning and say, let's go do something hard today.
Yep.
You have to opt into hard, because I got to be honest, man, there are so many better options for these kids just to spend their day than football. Like, some of these video games, you just step into the game. It's open world and you can just live there. And it's a better life than the one you live in your house. And you don't have to sweat, and you don't have to get cussed at, though someone's 12-year-old son on there will be on there calling you racial epithets for sure. But you don't have to be cussed at by anybody who has any power over you. And you could just have fun. Like, we've reached kind of a level, and not to dump on kids, but we've reached a level where the things that they have access to, they have to choose what's hard. And it gets harder and harder. And Nick Saban walked away from it. And I think it was a confluence of things. But but just to go back to Alabama fans, they're not used to hard either. They're not used to
Yep.
losing to Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And so to complain about Kalen
and
DeBoer's
they got
t-shirt, that's the
and
most relatable thing in the world to me.
and they
I
got
never have
South Carolina this week. If they lose to South Carolina too, Kalen DeBoer is gonna be dude. They're gonna have to put him in witness protection in Tuscaloosa.
he actually, like, he might have to wear a suit because it will be his funeral. Open casket. Like, it there I've never been able to relate to Alabama fans more than I have over this freak out about Kalen DeBoer's shirt, though. Because I like, just think about your life, George. Like, think about all the things you have going on. I think about all the things that I have going on. I got 4 kids. We're in 3 sports. 3 of them are teenagers. Uh we're in the middle of, this is a very fun job, but the most stressful part of our year with everything we do with Unafraid Show. We're out here putting in 16, 17-hour days on this. Our wives are both very accomplished, very busy people with a lot going on. Not everything goes great at their work all the time. Not everything goes great at our work all the time. Not everything goes great with our kids all the time. Not everything goes great with our extended family all the time. Stuff in our homes is falling apart. There's a lot going on, right? And at the end of the day, if the one thing that I can control is getting mad at my wife for leaving a wine glass, next to the bed on the bedside table. And the thing that she can control is getting mad at me for not ever once putting my socks in the hamper in 20 years of our marriage, then that's going to be the one place where our frustration comes out.
Yep.
Like that's going to be the only thing that we even know to like life is overwhelming right now. Please put your socks away. Like that's what Alabama fans are going through right now. And I just it's funny to me because I get it. I'm not mad at them at all. Keep yelling at him about his shirt because there's nothing you do about the fact that Diego Pavia shredded you and you
Yeah.
lost to Vanderbilt and they
There
threw the goalpost in the Cumberland River.
you guys, and there's a video about Diego Pavia and who he is and how he got here, bruh. It is crazy cool story, including a mama that wouldn't even talk to him after he lost. Um, Connor Stallions was on Bussin' with the Boys. And out of all the things that he said, because it was a very interesting interview, I want him here on Unafraid Show. I will be hitting Connor Stallions up because we need to talk to the man. Uh, I do not like he levied an allegation, but in such casual terms that the way he said it, it wasn't like, yo, I know some. No, he said that there has been a school that has been using Bluetooth technology to talk to their quarterback for a while. And mind you, this is the first year that in-helmet communication is legal. Do you believe him, Ralph? Do you believe good old Connor?
If you had just given me this information and said there's a team, not a Big Ten team, that for years has been using helmet communication with their quarterbacks, I would say I could see that. I could see that, especially after all like the Houston Astros
Yeah.
allegations and like, yeah, like sure, like that could be possible. I wouldn't. I'm. If you get caught, you get in a lot of trouble. But like,
Yes.
I could see someone trying to use that to their advantage. And then you tell me Connor Stallion said it, and like something in me is like, no, like I
Yeah.
don't know. I
It's
can't explain to you what it is. I can't explain to you what it is, and it's not that he's not believable. It's just that there, when he does stuff like this, it makes it. You know that there's been a lot of stuff said about him that's not true, like the
yes.
legend of Connor Stallions. Like you know, sure the manifesto is real. Sure, he was able to
Dude, it's
decode a
like
lot of
tales
signals.
of George Washington and Paul Bunyan and
Yes, yes, and when he says stuff like this, it makes me feel like he's in on his own,
yes, dude,
like,
it's like the last
legend.
dragon. Catches bullets with his teeth.
It's
Like this.
it's it's getting to be very, like, American Sniper-ish, and, like, I
Yes.
know that there's a lot of people who, like, look at Chris Kyle as a hero, but if we get into all of the claims about Chris Kyle, there's some wild stuff in there.
Yes.
You
Oh,
gotta choose
or
whether
like
to
Bo
believe or not.
Jackson. Bo
Yes.
Jackson is the sports equivalent of that. I tell people all the time, the legend of Bo. I'm talking about pro Bo Jackson, not college. That the legend of Bo Jackson is greater than Bo Jackson because it is people out here that believe that Bo Jackson is a Hall of Famer or should have been a Hall of Famer. And you're like, no, there's nothing about his career that should have been a Hall of Famer. And the fact that he got hurt, that's actually the best thing for the legend of Bo Jackson. Because he would have had to be a godlike figure to live up to the legend that is Bo Jackson and the tall tales that are said about him. I mean, think about like the Deion Sanders story. They talk about his 40-yard dash like he was Willie Mays Hayes from
Major
Major
League.
League. Like he walked out of the limo in his sweats and just ran up to the line, ran a 40 at the combine, and then ran right back out the door. That's the way they tell the Deion Sanders story too. And this is the way that the Connor Stallion stories are growing. And Ralph, I do believe that he is in on the plot, that he is in on the script writing, or that he sees the script writing and he like, oh yeah, baby. If I grow this is marketing. If I grow
Mm.
the legend now, because somebody is going to employ Connor Stallions at some point in time after his punishments come out and he served them. Oh, he will be somebody's consultant, and then I book it, Ralph. Connor Stallions will be a college football head coach at some point in time. I I I would bet anything on that.
I just immediately start doing division in my head, though, like now, because if you said that, and so like I hear Connor Stallions said that a non Big Ten team has been using Bluetooth for helmet communication for years. And when I say that out loud, what I actually like uh strip it down to its common denominator, I'm like, okay, 6 years ago, Connor Stallion talked to a coach who said, I bet you could use Bluetooth for helmet communications for a quarterback.
Wow.
Like that's how I like I'm
Yeah.
imagining that it's probably some version of that. Like it's not, there's so many people involved, and I just there's so many people involved in college football that it is extraordinarily hard to keep things covered up over time. We went through this with the Antonio Pierce story last week. Like you would have to be so focused, and not everybody that you work with that has the same logo on their polo is for you. A lot of these people, even your grad assistants, are gunning for your job.
Yep.
Even position coaches are looking at D coordinators in the middle of the season in a 1-5 season, saying like, if they get fired, I wonder how I can position myself to get. Like, it's not like everybody's on some big team, and if they know that you're doing something wrong, they will use it against you.
You are 100% right about that. But Ralph, we got to get to the picks this week. We got to get to the picks this week in the world of college football. And it looks like, Ralph, last week I was 2-3. You were 4-1. And some kind of way you are ahead right now at 20-11. I am 17-14.
My wife asked me to start using real money, and I'm like, that will ruin it.
Why would that ruin it?
If I start actually like betting on, first of all, I don't think it would be these games that I bet on. I think I would be more like in the weeds on the ones that I thought were sure things, because we talk about a lot of the high stakes games, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, she was like, no, just like you're if you're on a heater, just put money on it. And I'm like, that will be the thing
That
at,
that knocks you off the heater.
yeah, because like 20 and 11 is not it's not bad.
No, that's beyond not bad. That's very good, Ralph. That is very good. All right, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about these games. We got Texas at Oklahoma, and this is a game that I am super excited about. The Red River rivalry. This is going to be a special game. This is an opportunity for Texas to keep it going. I'm excited about this Red River rivalry. You have Texas. They are what, plus 15? Oh no, no, sorry. Texas is minus 15. They're at Oklahoma technically, even though this game's going to be played in the Cotton Bowl. Ralph, I could not be any more excited. Who are you taking in this football game?
I think I have to go with Oklahoma. I think it would be probably irresponsible to not go with Oklahoma. Um, if you just stacked talent against talent, if you took all Oklahoma's players and you put them at Iowa State or something
Yes.
like that, then I think you might take that minus 15, because Oklahoma can't run the ball. They're starting a freshman at quarterback, and they're awesome on defense, but it
Yep.
hasn't really worked as complementary football. But this is the Red River rivalry.
Everything
10
goes out the window there, bro. And then
for real.
Quinn Ewers' first game back, live reps for the first time in over a month. So he could be a little bit rusty. Timing could be a little bit off, and that could throw things off. I am going to take Oklahoma plus 15 as well.
And you should too if you're listening to this. 10 out of the last 11 of these games were decided by less than 12 points.
Yeah.
Almost all of those were one score.
Yes. And
15
both of
would be
these
such
teams
an
have been
anomaly.
extremely close in recruiting rankings over the last few years and everything else. So even though Texas is the sexy pick, don't fall in love. I know sex sells, but don't fall in love with it. All right, next game up, we got Penn State -5.5 at USC. And on one hand, it looks like USC has improved on defense, but this 5.5 points, Ralph, where Penn State is favorite, give me the Nittany Lions. I think that USC falls to 3-3, and everything starts coming apart at the seams out there in Trojan land because they're already. I've been on their message board. They are not real happy right now.
Well, you pointed out 5-7 over the last 12.
Yep.
And Clay Helton was what over his last 12 before he got fired?
8-4, I believe, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yep.
So this is I don't imagine USC fans having the same reaction to the name Lincoln Riley that most of college football does. There are names in college football where the shine stays shiny except for the people who are closest to it,
Yep.
right? And ask people about Cliff Kingsbury, and so and Lincoln Riley is one of them that, there's a lot of people in Norman right now who are loading up the biggest, fattest I told you so in the history of the world and getting ready to just package it and ship it to LA. I love Penn State in this game and has nothing to do with USC. USC actually I think they're on the right path and they deserve respect for the progress they've made. They don't want respect, they want to win. That's fair. Um, but USC has improved so much over last year, and I actually think offensively what they're doing is pretty cool because Miller Moss doesn't move a lot and they're still scoring. But this Penn State team is like it's like Superman Kryptonite, but like not Superman because USC is not
Yeah.
Superman. It's like
They are Minnesota, but a little better on offense.
and
This, but
they average giving up 2.5 yards a rush, and they themselves average like 7 yards a rush.
yeah, yeah, dude. But this is the kind of game that USC can win, though. Like this is the way their season has been. So upset is possible, and that would get them back ranked. But if they lose this game, boy, oh boy. I went on their message board. They were like, if we lose 3 games after 6 games, the season's over with. We're never making the playoffs. And they're right about that. Next game up, number 2 versus number 3. The Ohio State Buckeyes head out to Eugene, baby. And Ohio State is a 3-point favorite as they head to Autzen Stadium. People don't think them 60,000 folks at Autzen Stadium are going to be loud, Ralph. But you've been there. It is one of the and people have been like, listen, they've been to the big house, they've been down to Tuscaloosa, they've been to this and that. They played in front of 100,000 people in Beaver Stadium at Penn State. Like, you don't understand the actual math. The science says it is the second loudest recorded outdoor college football stadium that has ever been recorded, 127 decibels. So I don't care how many people are in there. It is set up. Acoustics matter. The science. Do not let your thoughts and your ideas get in the way of what is verifiable. Verifiable. Bring your own decibel. I will be in the stadium. Give me my Ducks +3. Actually, I don't even want no damn points. We win it outright, Ralph. Biggest game of the year so far because it's the next game, according to Coach Lanning.
So I was visiting some high school players that I used to cover, and they played for Oregon State, so they lived in Corvallis. And one of them was a backup quarterback who I think was moved to like safety or wide receiver. His name is Mason Moran, and I hope I'm not diming him out on this because it's a funny story. I'm visiting Mason Moran, and he is like an emergency backup quarterback, and he got in against Oregon in Autzen. And I was like, how was it? And he said, I couldn't hear my thoughts. And I've heard that phrase before, right? Like, it's so loud I
Yes.
couldn't hear myself think. So I asked him, I was like, so that's not just an expression? And he's like, no, man, it was too loud to think.
Yes.
Too loud to think. And so I always think about it. He's like, you can't let on to the rest of your team. But like, he's like, I didn't know what was going on. Like, he said it was real bad. And that was for a Civil War game that was probably already out of reach at that point. So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. I'm anybody who is arguing with the science of that is just par for the course of the age we live in, I guess. I would stick with arguing who is going to cover Emeka Egbuka,
Emeka
and
Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith.
yeah, and like, will you tell me who?
Um, Muhammad is one guy, but and he'll do well. The other corner, he better pick it up, buddy. I hope you ate your Wheaties. You gonna have a long day. But a lot of it is going to depend on Will Howard because he is not he's not as good of a passer as Cal McCord is, who was there last year. And if
Yeah,
Oregon's defensive line can get pressure, make him make some throws. All right, next game up, Kansas
I'm
State
on
at
Ohio State, by the way. I just want to say I'm on Ohio State.
Yuck, what a loser. Colorado, Kansas State at Colorado plus 4.5. So Colorado is a 4.5 point underdog. And Ralph, I am taking Colorado. There are multiple people who asked me, they were like, George, please don't pick Colorado. You're a jinx for Colorado. Don't do it. I'm picking Colorado. I believe that Deion Sanders, I might believe now. I might. I'll believe if they win this damn football game against Kansas State because Kansas State, I think, has the inside track, aside from BYU, to win the conference or at least make the conference championship game. So give me them. Give me Colorado. They're able to. Their defense is able to get a few more stops. They're doing much better. Give me the Buffaloes.
Okay, so of when I'm 20 and 11, I think you're 17 and 14,
Yep.
and I think we're both 0 and 3 on Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So this has nothing to do with how I actually feel. We're gonna find out which one of us it is. Because I think Colorado has a pretty good shot in this game. Um, but I'm gonna take Kansas State. I'm gonna take DJ Giddens. Um, I don't think he gets the ball enough, but he's been fantastic for them, for Kansas State. But I do think this game sets up so nicely for Colorado to do something special, considering they're playing a North Dakota State defense and they've already played North Dakota State
Yep.
this year, considering that Kansas State's three teams they played that can pass all passed on them. But I'm very curious. Like, I've been wrong every time, and I feel like Colorado's going to win.
Yep.
So I'm going to pick Kansas State and
Yep.
see what
One
happens.
of us will be right. All right, last game up. Ole Miss at LSU plus 3.5. Ralph, so this is our fifth game. Brian Kelly is on thin ice with the LSU folks, and losing this game would be bad. But Ole Miss, I still don't know everything about Ole Miss. That South Carolina game didn't teach me anything. Didn't teach me anything. So I am going to go with LSU. And this game is in Death Valley. Oh boy. And if Ole Miss loses this game, this sends the SEC into chaos because they're going to want to get, Ole Miss into the college football playoff. They are having a hard time, the AP voters dropping SEC teams, but as they continue to drop games, they ain't going to have a choice, and one of these two teams is taking a tumble. And I think that if Ole Miss doesn't lose this game, they're going to end up at 11-1, 10-2 at the worst. But if they lose this game, this is a 9-3 season. 8-4 coming up. I'm taking LSU.
Ole Miss has to be careful because there are a lot of teams that are transfer heavy, but Ole Miss is like not just transfer heavy, but like the best mercenaries play at Ole Miss.
Yep.
And the last time we saw a team not really live up to expectations with a lot of people who were there for the extra athletic opportunities that are afforded to them was Texas A&M, and that was a 2021 recruiting class.
Yep.
When that fell apart pretty quick. So I think Ole Miss has put themselves in a situation where they kind of have to win or implode. I think those are the only two options, because right now Lane Kiffin already is getting his name bantied about for other jobs. He earned that with the life he's lived in college football.
Yeah.
But when you have to deal with people talking about your head coach getting taken away, when you have to deal with a bunch of people who are at your school that might not have as much school pride, and might not have drank as much of the Kool-Aid, they might have champagne instead because they could afford champagne. Like it's a volatile situation. So I don't want to see that happen, but LSU's coming off a bye week. Brian Kelly, for all his faults, is very good at coaching football. This game is super, super important. What's the line again?
Plus 4.5. So no, sorry, excuse me. LSU plus 3.5.
Gosh. Give me LSU. Someone's gonna be mad.
Yes. Some fan base is going to be extremely upset. And you guys, make sure that you guys
Who did you
like
take?
the
Who did you take?
Oh, LSU. LSU, easy work for me.
Can I ask you one more question before we go?
Yep.
Because I want to get this. I'm gonna clip this one. Do LSU fans have a right based on what's happened recently? Should they be more patient with Brian Kelly?
No, they should not be more patient with Brian Kelly. They are a team that doesn't rebuild, they reload. And the fact that this defense is not, and he's a defensive guy, is not been consistent and good, that's been a problem. So yes, they have a right to hold his feet to the fire. I wouldn't be talking about firing him and under that stuff, but he should be under significant pressure at this point in time in his career at LSU.
All right. I mean, they have 2 seasons since 2010 where they lost less than 3 games. One of them they won a national championship, and the other they lost in the national championship. The rest of the time, it's not. They lose sometimes.
Yeah. Well, listen, with all the talent in Louisiana, the thing that they struggled with at times was offense. It's the defense that is an issue. So it's not that everything's going to be perfect. I think the fans just want to see a more consistent brand of football, especially on the defensive end.
They rather lose 13-7 than 45-38.
Yes, for
They'd
sure.
rather go 9-3 in a bunch of rock fights.
Yes, and where their defense is stoning people, yes, 100%.
All right.
And you guys, that's the Unafraid Show. I'm George Wrighster. He's Ralph Amsden. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend, and catch us next week.